Thank you to my music posse that gets me kind of going to welcome all of you social media friends into today's episode. Um, Today is the last day of January, right? Today's episode of New You, New Job, and New Home. And for my fellow Asian brothers and sisters, happy Lunar New Year to you. 恭喜發財. For those of you like me that can speak Chinese somewhat fluently. Hey, well, welcome to all of you as well. And hopefully in this new Lunar New Year, let me whisper this to you. Hopefully you don't have to give out as much red envelopes as you might be taking it in. So there you go. My first guest today is a recurring guest. And he's a relationship, someone that I've come to know within the past, I don't know, maybe 18 months. And he, with the organization that he's a part of, he tackles one big problem that is facing a lot of young professionals today. And what is that potentially big problem? That big problem is the burden of earning that degree. And if your parents, for example, was not able to fund and pay for the expense of earning that college degree, then most likely when you are about to finish that degree, you're staring at this sometimes big obstacle. So with that said, like I mentioned, my first guest, his name is Zach. Let's welcome him into the studio, and of course, because he's got a large work family across the U.S. Let's ask his work family to welcome him early on this Friday morning as well. So let's go. All right, Zach, your work family is giving you that big round of applause, buddy.
Yes, thank you. I like it. It's
Thank
a good
you for
work
showing
family.
up. Thank you for showing up on a early Friday morning.
You're welcome. Early rainy Friday morning. You're welcome.
Yeah, early rainy Friday morning, and
Overcast.
and I know that going back in time when I asked you, hey Zach, would you have an interest? Could you show up to talk about your mojo? And I think in that first conversation you asked me, where do I have to go? And I said, well, the beauty of what I'm doing is you can stay put where you are at, and we'll bring you in virtually. So that's kind of a nice thing on today.
It's nice. Yeah, you allowed me to keep my hair from getting covered in rain and drenched. I would have looked a lot different coming in from a vehicle to a studio or something.
True that. So Zach, for my social friends who don't know you yet, or don't know you well enough, did I go off base by saying that for a lot of young professionals, maybe even not young professionals, but professionals in the mid part of their career, they may be scratching their head with that big burden, right? So talk to us about what is it that you do. How did you get started, right, to do what you're doing now? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, what I do currently is a mix. When my career started in the financial aid world in a financial aid office at a college, and so in that world, we are traditionally serving students who are students and their families when they are 17 years old and they're looking for a college up until the time at which they graduate, and then the students leave, and we're focused on this maybe 5-year lifespan of a student going through this journey right before college till they graduate. And I gained a lot of experience there with the financial aid systems and the processes, things like FAFSAs and CSS profiles. If any of you have done those forms, you'll know what they mean. But I joined a company just a few years ago, and what we do is we try to offer planning before you get to be in this true financial aid window where you have access to financial aid professionals in the office. And so
Right.
we can help families and students better save, better strategize beforehand. And then now, especially, we're really trying to help families and post students, I guess graduates,
Right.
tackle their educational loans. And that has been, in my experience, it has been, to your point, a growing problem. And I think it does, because of the burden that some students leave with, it
Yes.
can follow them for 10, 15, 20 years, which for a lot of folks, if you're 23 or 24 and you graduate with your traditional degree, puts you at your early 40s by the time you're working through this, perhaps, or maybe you're still tackling it. And
Hmm.
so it has, that's typically the life cycle that we work with.
Yeah. And because of, the potential burden of this, with either lack of planning or a lack of third-party guidance, um, once the outcome is staring back at some of you, social media friends,
Hmm.
um, this time delay, right, 10 years plus, it just creates this snowball effect of preventing some of these young professionals from moving to the next chapter of their life events, right?
Hmm. Hmm. I've
Yeah.
done calculations in, planning. For instance, if a young professional is paying on student loans and foregoing their, let's say, a 401k contribution or an investment of that kind, and when you figure, let's say, $300 a month going towards educational loans versus 401k, and you figure that 401k would in theory grow over 40 or 50 years, you're really talking about substantial numbers in terms of wealth,
Yes.
that borrowers miss out on opportunities to create if they don't have an optimized strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I know offline we had a conversation about this, which is the burden of student loan debt can certainly be an obstacle. It's either going to flat out prevent someone or delay someone from going down the path that they want. It's this fork in the road. I want
Hmm.
to own something. I want to own my home, but I can't right now, so I've got to continue renting. But to that point, um, I don't know if you've heard this locally. I've heard through some of my other relationships where landlords, investors of properties are now, it's kind of odd. They're now kind of sticking it to renters where they want the top shelf renters, rockstar credit. They want to see 3 times rent through their earned income. And there's a part of me that when I've heard that, I'm like, wait a minute, that's harder than getting financing to buy a home,
True. You're right. You're right.
right? So
Hmm.
anyway, going off tangent a little bit. By the way, audience members, stay tuned for the rest of this episode. I will drop some information in front of you where if you are facing student loan debt, there is a third party program right now that allows you to benefit from down payment assistance, pay off, consolidate all of your student loans. But here's the twist, people, it'll only do it up to the value of $40,000. And that just might help some people. Would you agree, Zach?
Yes, yes. I think for especially a couple examples of numbers where this could contextualize that. But if a borrower exits a 4-year undergrad program, as an example, and they submit a FAFSA, they borrow from the government all 4 years, they're going to leave with about 27,000-ish dollars of principal plus some interest. And so when you figure a $40,000 program of some kind, I think that's an incredible help.
Yeah, yeah. So I that exists. It, by the way, social media friends, it's not something that's like completely new. Um, it's a program that every year it gets restarted. But the reality is this: the funds are limited, so it's
Mhm.
always on a first come, first served basis. So, like I said, stay tuned. Toward the end of the episode, I'll drop some information for you in this live stream conversation as to how you can reach out to me to get more information. Let me now bring in my next guest. And just like what Zach does, you've heard it, people, just like what Zach does, he helps you plan and he helps you deal with the outcome of the burden of debt, which I call stuff that you don't want, right?
Right.
Okay. So my next guest is also an expert in helping many of us do something like this. Let me show you. My. Hang on one second. Let me show you some of the rooms that I sometimes see in my own home. That's the reality. So here we go. All right. Does this look like your place? Yes. It kind of looks like my place because let's call it like it is. After two big holidays, you're rushing through the holidays. You got all this stuff to do. Sometimes, you just want to you leave it, but then the longer you leave it, the more you procrastinate, then the problem exists for you. And what you really want is this, especially for the ladies.
I like it.
So with all of that said, let me welcome my next guest into the conversation. Anne-Marie, how are you?
I am well, thank you.
Yeah. So for a few, because I know you got a big social following. Why do I say that? Because, well, there's a lot of people that carry stuff that they don't want and they don't need, and they probably struggle with how do I get rid of it? Kind of like in Zach's world, right? How do I get rid of this student loan debt? So with all of that said, talk to us, the people who might not know you, as to why you coined your business. I thought it'd be so appropriate. That Girl Organizes.
Sure. Well, little quick history. I am that girl for everybody. And as far as where I got that girl, when I was skiing on the Madison water ski team, my coach, I was 16 years old. He goes, "You're that girl." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "My name's Anne-Marie." And he goes, "No, you're that girl." And he goes, "Just trust me. It's a great name. There used to be a show in the 60s, which was 10 years before my time. It was an independent woman who was a go-getter. She moved out of her daddy's house and just made things happen. And that's been me ever since."
Okay, wonderful. What is the biggest struggle for many of your clients to start their journey of getting organized? Is it procrastination? They don't know where to start, a combination of those two and more?
A combination of that and anxiety, afraid they'll get rid of something that they might use later. And honestly, if you haven't used something in the last 2 years, the likelihood of using it is so small that it's usually not worth keeping unless it's worth a fortune, whatever that is. Sometimes it's a tool, sometimes, it's that cool dress you wore 5 years ago to someone's wedding. Just depends.
I hear you. Can I share with you something I'm tackling right now? I've procrastinated long enough, and hopefully when you hear this from me, you'll give me a little grin. You might laugh. That's okay. Hey, I am tackling my procrastinated project of getting rid of CDs.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I'm really glad it's not VHS tapes, or I would be like on the floor rolling right now.
Zach is laughing as well. So,
oh yeah.
So guess what? I procrastinated this, right, for a couple of years. Why? Because they were taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to now. Show of hands, Zach, Anne-Marie, how many of us play a CD?
Not raising my hand.
Oh, He's a closet CD
Yeah,
player.
yeah. I should say, but here's my question. Do you have them in the CD, like the physical plastic cases, or did you put them in a binder? I feel like what I recall is people used to have binders of these
Yeah.
CDs organized and decorated
If
I
you,
had them in my original case.
in the cases.
What about you?
I think I kept the cases. They were, to me, they felt emotionally endearing when you had the NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys CDs, but I think I put them into a binder. So maybe I took a little of Anne-Marie's organizational mindset and thought, okay, I'll organize the actual disc itself.
Yeah.
the binder's way better, Zach. Way better.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm going through this entertainment cabinet where over the years I've purchased, I've stored these CDs of, I don't know, many different music genres. And so I've started boxing them up. And my strategy, Anne-Marie, is I box them up. It's still sitting around the house. See, that's the problem. And I'm going to take them to one of these places called, you probably have seen it, Half Price Books. Okay. Where I'm just going to wheel it in there one box at a time. And whatever they tell me, here's the reality. Whatever they tell me it's worth, I'm like, yeah, give it to me. At least I get to buy a cup of coffee.
Right.
Amen.
At McDonald's.
At McDonald's,
Yeah.
right? Not Starbucks. Not Starbucks.
No, probably not.
Right. Yeah. Do you find that most people tend to get the trigger to procrastinate just before a life event? So let me paint some of the life events that I think I know that might trigger it, which is they're about to add to their family, baby. They're planning to move, right? Move, upgrade, let's keep it simple, upgrade, or downgrade, which is downsize. Are those the typical triggers leading up to a life event where you get that phone call and say, Anne-Marie, that girl organizes. I need you.
I think they are excellent catalysts for sure because you need to make a move. Your wife's been crabbing at you, and it's time to do something. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's got to be forward.
Yeah.
And she's got to see some progress. So yes, definitely.
Okay. Good. So my thinking is spot on. For those of you social media friends who may be like me, procrastinated, maybe it's not a CD project. For you, it's something else. Maybe for you, it's your collection of romance novels, spy fiction books, whatever the case is. What you've heard from Anne-Marie is the time is now. Don't procrastinate. Start the process. You can either DIY some of it, but if you can't, simply reach out to my friend, that girl organizes. Anne-Marie, let me ask this question. As part of your organization business, are there certain tools that you encourage your clients and your community to invest in? Like, are there certain retail stores that you are a frequent shopper at? I'm going to guess. Container Store?
That's a great guess. I do like Container Store for some things. But honestly, Target has most of my needs.
Oh, yes.
And if you have
Target.
red card, they deliver for free. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, you're right. Target. That's another
Very
retail
fancy.
place. Yeah, that's another retail place my wife frequents. And by the way, I know this too. You get, 5% cash back if you use the retail Target card, right?
5% off. Yes.
5% off. That's it. Okay. All right. See, you get it. You get it back. So for my fellow Asian brothers and sisters, as we celebrate our Lunar New Year, we know this. Some of you may be getting a few of these red envelopes, and some of you might be getting them stashed with some big bills. So the time is now. Use these red envelopes in the best way possible. In Zach's world, you should use it to pay off student loan debt.
Mhm.
And in Anne Marie's world, well, use it to go to Target, get some of the tools that she's going to recommend so that you can get yourself organized. Don't procrastinate, people. Do it today because it's still the start of 2025. And so, wrapping up our episode today, I mentioned this earlier. If you would like to connect with me to learn more about this third-party down payment assistance solution to consolidate student loan debt, simply scan the QR code that you see here. I want to thank my guests, Zach and Anne Marie, today for showing up to share their mojo with you. And so as we wrap up, let me ask my music posse to play us out. Here we go.